You're listening to Ask Dr. Jake. My name is Dr. Jake Tucker. I'm the owner and founder of Good Life Family Chiropractic here on the south side of Lincoln. And we're coming to you today with another message of health, hope, and wholeness. And I really wanted to share another story with you, just of success from our patients in our office. Another one from a radio listener, and actually a couple of radio listeners. Now, unfortunately, I caught them at a really bad time every morning. They would listen to me on their way to a gym, and they would be in their car, and they just wouldn't have the opportunity to write down the phone number, but every time they heard me, they said, "Oh yeah, we should go meet him. We definitely need to talk to him. We need to have a consult because this is Deb and Pat, and Deb and Pat, they're a one of a kind couple, a great Christian couple, godly men and women, run their small group at their church. And believe it or not, they actually went to church with me. We just had never run into each other or run in the same social group. And but they heard me talking on air for week after week after week, and just never had a convenient time to pick up the phone and call the office. And if that's you, if you're in the car and you want an appointment but you just haven't had a chance, just take 30 seconds, pull off to the side of the road, type these digits in your phone. You don't have to call now. Just save it as Good Life Family Chiropractic or Dr. Jake Tucker, either way, and then get back on the road and go to work or go do your errands or go to the gym and do the thing that you're supposed to do. But the number is 531-289-7100. But Deb and Pat, they didn't, and they went for about 2 years of listening to my show religiously. They loved hearing me talk. They loved hearing the success stories of patients coming in and the transformations that they saw by, implementing the laws and principles of health and healing, as opposed to just covering up symptoms with medications or even supplements. No, they wanted to be fully healthy. They believed what I believed. They were living 4 out of the 5 essentials. They were practicing the things that I talk about with creating a peaceful mindset, one of success that allowed them to live a purpose-driven life. They lived the nutrition lifestyle that they wanted to eat well to help give their bodies what they needed, but they didn't do it perfectly. They didn't have all the guidance, but they did their best with what they knew how, and they loved tuning in, especially to the episodes where I did talk a little bit more about nutrition. They loved the fitness side. Obviously, they were on their way to the gym every morning when they were listening to me, and they loved doing that. And this thing about toxicity, they hadn't heard a bunch about that. They'd never done a detox or a cleanse, but they knew that they needed to have healthier products and they shouldn't be exposing themselves to some of the heavy metals that we get exposure to in things like deodorant or our cookware. And so they minimized their exposure as best they knew how. But I did eventually end up meeting him. I ran into him, not at church and not at any of the radio show events that we do, but I was actually at a home and garden show at the Lancaster Event Center, and they saw this sign and they wandered up and they started talking. They realized who I was, and they said, "Oh, we listened to you on the radio. We've been meaning to come into your office for a while." And I happen to be doing free digital nerve scans out there. And some of you may have gone to one of these conventions or home shows or fitness expos, or had somebody come to your office to do a lunch and learn. And they're like, "Oh, can we try that test? We've been meaning to go get our nervous systems evaluated." And I looked at his spine. Pat had been a runner for years and years. And what I saw was, is a direct result of the physical stress and strain that he'd put on his body, not just from that, but from his job and from having kids and the things that he did with that, the sports that he played as a younger child. Nobody had ever taken care of his spine. Nobody had ever taught him how to take care of his spine. And as a result, the physical toll that he put on his spine led to degeneration and deterioration. He had severe neurological distress. And I told him what I tell everybody. If we see this on an exam, we need to do further testing in the office and take x-rays and see exactly what's going on. And so he set up an appointment. The same thing with his wife. While she hadn't been as much of a runner, she was dealing with more things in her neck, which is very typical of someone who's been a mom, especially if you've been breastfeeding or you spend a lot of time looking down at your children, which most of us do. It's just part of the normal, growth and development of a child. But we developed this neck pain, and her neck pain came from the same thing that comes from with most of us that are parents. We look down at our children. We spend all this time down there because they're so much shorter than us and they demand our attention. And it actually started to change the curve in her neck. It started to reverse it. And it had been there so long that she had degenerative arthritis building up there. Now, I didn't see that until I got her into the office, but we had taken that free digital nerve scan and we saw the irritation that was causing to the sympathetic nervous system. And so they came in, we got the x-rays, we saw exactly what was going on. If for both of them, they had levels of phase 3 degeneration in each of those joints. And that's in spite of doing all this stuff that we know you need to be healthy, but it really illustrates the importance of active spinal care. Our spines need movement every single day. Every single day, our spines need to move, and they need to move through all ranges of motion. And yeah, if you do yoga, it decreases the amount of stress and strain and slows down the degenerative process. But what we actually see is when you do specific exercises, when you do corrective chiropractic care that is actively looking to maintain your spine in health, we can actually prevent this. We can actually reverse this in a lot of cases, not every case. And sometimes there's too much lifestyle stress for any intervention to make a difference other than you stopping that lifestyle stress. But we were able to intervene with both of them. With Deb, it was a matter of taking care of the neck and shoulder pain, getting her shoulders working again. For Pat, it was getting his low back to a place where he could start to live that active lifestyle where he was used to again. But ultimately, their goal wasn't to feel better. Their goal was to live their best life, to be able to be used by God into retirement, to enjoy retirement with their kids and with their grandkids, and eventually with their great grandkids, do that for as long as possible. And ultimately to be ready and available because they were willing to be used by God. Because if you're sick and tired and you're stuck on a couch, when God calls you, you may not be ready. If God called Moses and Moses lived the life of the average 80-year-old when he was called from the Sinai Peninsula as a shepherd to lead the children of Israel out of Egypt, he wouldn't have been able to. He would have been stuck on a couch or stuck in a lazy boy, stuck there with degenerative discs and hips and needing surgeries constantly and needing metformin and needing his insulin injections and having too many doctor's visits because he was on an average of 11 different medications, if not more, spending $25,000 a year on healthcare costs. That's what the average American is doing right now. And so it really does take a holistic approach to this thing. We need to be doing those things that Deb and Pat were doing, but we also need to be doing those things that Deb and Pat weren't doing. Meaning, number one, looking at the spine. Because the spine, its job is to surround and protect your central nervous system, the most important system in the body. And there's actually a specific relationship between the function of the spine and the function of your brain. When your spine works better, your brain works better. And we see that just in some of these sedentary studies that we study. We look at this review of people that sat for 6.5 hours. That's the amount the average American sits. If you sat for just an hour straight, we saw that your life expectancy was affected the exact same rate as you smoking a single cigarette. And if you continued to string that together, we saw that the people that sat the most were at greatest risk of severe health problems. In fact, we actually saw a 50% increased risk in gastrointestinal cancers. GI tract cancers for people that just sat for 6.5 hours. We know the detrimental effects of sitting. You just sitting down, you lose 10 degrees of curvature off the side of your spine. You're supposed to have that smooth 45-degree curve in your low back when you're seated. When you're looking at it from the side, when you sit down, it drops down 10 degrees. You do that over and over again, then maybe you start leaning into a laptop or you lean into a computer, or you just never get up. It starts to wear out, and that 10 degrees becomes 20 degrees, becomes 30 degrees, becomes 40 degrees. And now I'm starting to see over and over again, and especially in my elderly who are sitting in these lazy boy chairs, who just don't want to get up because it hurts too much. Honestly, it's pain. They don't want to get up and move because of the pain from the degenerative arthritis that's formed there over the years and years. Intervene before it gets to that point. Stop waiting until it hurts to do something about it. Take action now. Be your own doctor. The best doctor in the world lives inside you. Listen to him. Give him what he needs. Follow the laws and principles that God gave us. Number one, create an environment of peace, one that's focused on him, one that's focused on love and service and giving of ourselves and doing what God's called us to do. Maybe that's even just doing what you already love to do. Hopefully it is. God gives us calls that fulfill us. I'm fulfilled every single day by working with people who want to be healthy and who want to be well and seeing them be able to achieve that. If you're not doing something like that, maybe it's time to start changing jobs, looking for a new job. There's no better time than right now to be looking for a new job, because everybody needs somebody, because so many people are scared of going to work. If you're not afraid of going to work, if you're not afraid, then you have so much opportunity right now. There's no better time than right now to be looking for a new career, especially if you're feeling unfulfilled in your life and in your lifestyle. The second thing is take care of your spine. That central nervous system is so important. You cannot change your diet on your way to a healthy spine. You cannot change your exercise routine on your way to a healthy spine without specifically addressing the spine through chiropractic care. Chiropractors are the only ones that are trained in how to assess the spine for health. And then there's only a specific type of chiropractor that's trained in actually changing the shape and changing this position of the spine, getting it corrected. Less than 1% of us do that. Every chiropractor can help your spine move better. Every chiropractor can help the function of your nervous system, but only those of us that specialize in advanced structural correction actually can start to decrease things like a scoliosis or put a curve back in someone's neck or low back where that needs to be. And so, looking at that specifically, number 3, we need to be eating right. Our nervous system, it is in control of us replacing ourselves. Every cell needs to die and replace itself regularly. And in our stomach lining, that's every 3 days. In our organs, like our heart and our lungs, that's every 5 to 10 years. In our bones and in our nerves, that's every 15 to 20 years. And so we need to be giving the nervous system those nutrients that it needs to reorganize and recontrol and reconfigure and regrow those organ cells and tissues so that we can successfully regrow healthy bodies every 15 to 20 years. And so that requires you eat real foods, non-inflammatory foods, not foods coming out of a box or out of a drive-through lane. We actually need to be doing that. Number 4, we need oxygen through fitness, through exercise. We need to be moving on a daily basis, but also breaking a sweat because that's a natural part of our detoxification process, and it's required for good, healthy living. Number 5, we need to be minimizing our exposure to toxins because even if we're getting it out through sweat and through our liver and through our kidneys and through our urine and through our fecal material, even if we're doing that, we have to limit our exposure to things that create inflammation, that create carcinogenic processes and ultimately create cancer. And so if we're doing those things, we build health. If we're not doing those things work against us and actively build sickness and disease. And you're sitting in no worse country in the world right now that has the best access to resources, but shows the worst outcomes as far as health. If you do things the same way everyone else does and you expect different results, that's the definition of insanity because you're not going to get there. You're going to get the same results everyone else is if you do the things that everyone else does. And just continuing to live your life the way that's convenient, the way that doesn't require you to change is not going to make a difference or make a change in your life. Be different. We're called to be different. Romans 12:2 says, do not conform any longer to the patterns of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind so that you can test and approve what God's will is, his good, pleasing, and perfect will. And Jesus said in John 10:10, the thief comes only to steal, kill, and destroy, but I have come that you may have life and have it to the full. Full life starts today. I recommend if you're dealing with any sign of dysfunction, if that's pain, if that's numbness, if that's aching, if that's tingly, call my office right now, 531-289-7100. You can shoot us a text, but make sure you're tuning in every day for another episode of Ask Dr. Jake.